Welcome to One Insight. My name is Rich Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can actually be lonely. You can feel like more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything. In a moment, you're going to hear me coaching Daniel. Daniel's a police officer. He's also African American. He's also about to become a coach. Oh, fuck it, I said it wrong. Excuse me. Start that one again. I'm trying to do it with power and not get my words mixed up. Okay, here we go. Third time's a charm. In a moment, you will hear me coaching Daniel. Daniel's a police officer. He's also African American. He's also a coach. And we talk about his journey from being an athlete and the struggles he had as an athlete, as a youngster. His first ever coach was his father. And then he had a coach as an athlete who saw him and described him as a diamond in a rough. A diamond in the rough. And that phrase struck him and stuck with him. And this is what Daniel does. He coaches people who are diamonds in the rough. There was a phrase his father said to him years ago that hit him so hard that it changed his life. In this conversation today, you'll hear me drawing out of Daniel who he really is, how coaching has impacted him, and how he's going to take this into the world and make a difference his own way. And then you'll hear me end with a promise I make to him that's very different to the one his father made to him, but lands with the same kind of impact. This is really fun. Daniel's a really extraordinary man. Hi, Daniel.
How's it going, Rich?
That answer's complicated these days, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you. And thanks for saying yes to this. We spoke last at my intensive. We did a virtual intensive for 21 days. And at one point you came on and I coached you and then you helped someone else too. And that really stuck in my mind. And I wanted to invite you to come on and see where we go on in a deeper conversation with just you and me. So you said yes. Why are you here? What's on your mind? How can I help you?
Well, I mean, most obviously I'm here because you asked, and I would definitely enjoy the opportunity to have a conversation with you. Also, just with everything that is going on with me personally, I guess business-wise, talking with you, I believe, would help clarify some things and help further give depth to what it is I'm creating, or at least what I think I'm creating.
Nice. Well, let's play. Tell me more. What does business-wise mean to you?
Most immediately, I'm focusing on creating my coaching practice, getting it to the point where it can sustain myself and my family for the long run. Also, I've started an apparel line earlier this year. And initially I thought that would be like my thing. As time went on and I began to really think about my gifts and what people have affirmed me, and coaching appeared, and having dug into it, I said, that is where I need to go.
Nice. And you have a full-time job right now?
Yes.
Say more about that.
I've been a police officer for 6 years, and it's interesting because I have a friend who's a police officer in another town, and 2 weeks before I actually put in my application, he and I were having a conversation. He said, "Hey, you ever think about being a police officer?" And at the time I was like, no, not really. You know, it's not really my thing. I never saw myself being in that occupation. But then as as things would have it, a couple weeks later, my wife and I were out at a carnival, and the town we were living in, the police department was recruiting at the time, had a couple conversations, picked up an application, and here we are 6 years later.
Mm. Coaching to one side, person to person in this moment, how is it being a police officer at this moment and being an African-American police officer at this moment? How is that?
It can be tough.
Yeah.
And at the same time, not tough. Mm-hmm. There's a particular tension, I believe, just within that the job comes with, because on one hand, you expect some people to not be welcoming of your presence, to just not appreciate the fact that there is a need for what you do. Mm. And then on the other hand, you also recognize that you have more support from people than there are naysayers and detractors. The added complexity of being, a Black male and the occupation, I get odd looks from people. There are times where I'll drive by somebody and they'll scowl at me. And if it's a Black person doing the scowling, I kind of get the sense, okay, it's probably because I'm a police officer. Mm. But if it's a white person, I have to ask, well, is it because I'm a cop or is it because I'm Black? Mm. Just understanding that there are still racial tensions very much real in the country. But for the most part, I recognize that there is a job to be done, and I can do the job well with integrity and with honor. So when other officers do horrendous things, I'm not necessarily trying to heal the wounds that everybody has in that moment. I recognize that I'll have the opportunity with my interactions with individuals to heal whatever wounds they may have, or to quell whatever issues are coming up for them, or to reframe and refocus their entire perspective of the law enforcement profession.
The language you use is very powerful. It speaks to me of coaching language, about living a created life, about being a values-driven person. Integrity and honor sounds like they drive you. And then in the face of circumstances, knowing how you'll show up no matter what occurs. And those are challenging. You can talk about it theoretically, but to live it and in the reality you do, I really acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me, and thanks again, person to person. Thanks for sharing that reality. Tell me, as you look into this future, is it a future that looks like a police officer part-time, other jobs on the side, or is it there's a moment where the police force is behind me, I have a completely new career?
It's the latter, mm-hmm. where I'll eventually leave this career for the future in coaching and everything else that I see that entails.
Yeah. I like the fact that you have an apparel line, by the way. Multiple streams of income is a great thing for any person, whether it's renting out a room in your house to mm-hmm. having products that you sell, as well as other gigs. So is that something that's just is rolling on in the background? You're going to let it go a little bit?
Right. No, it's very much rolling in the background right now, especially since I've committed more time and more focus to coaching. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's something that I kind of always wanted to do. And back around the beginning of the year, the opportunity presented itself and I capitalized on it then.
What is it? I'm curious. What kind of apparel?
Right now it's just t-shirts and hats.
I was wondering if you were wearing a t-shirt right now.
I'm not going to dig one out right now. I am wearing a t-shirt though. This is one I designed. It says Worship Lifestyle.
Nice.
The name of the line is Anchored Souls Apparel.
Say that slowly, because let's give you a shout out.
The name of the line is Anchored Souls Apparel. Mm-hmm. And the concept behind it is that due to our standing in Christ and the fact that he secures us in our souls and, enraptures us in life, there's literally nothing that we can't do. We don't have to worry about what people think about us, what people say we can or can't do, because Jesus said that all things are possible to those who believe. And when we're in him and our soul is secure in him, we are, I liken it to a kite. A lot of people feel that being a Christian or being a person of faith, there are a lot of rules that, keep you from doing things. My perspective is that just as a kite is tethered to a string, although it limits its motion and where it can and can't go, it actually liberates the kite to fully be a kite. Otherwise, if you cut the string off from the kite, it's going to fly for a little bit and go wherever it wants, and it will be free, but eventually it's going to crash and break, and you have a mess. So
that's a nice distinction. Without the string, it's no longer a kite. It's a piece of material flying in the wind, or it's crashing on the ground. That's a great distinction. Right. As you speak, I really get you're a man of faith, and that's why you're so values driven.
Very much so.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing yourself with me. Tell me more about what you want to create as a coach.
I believe I would want to create a type of practice that impacts impact makers, but not the type of impact makers that you would necessarily expect them to be. I'm thinking more along the lines of those that we might describe as underdogs or diamonds in the rough. Just people that have overcome obstacles in the face of adversities in order to create something amazing in the world. I'm
imagining that the reason that strikes home for you is that speaks to you. It's your story too. Tell me a little of your story, the diamond in the rough.
Well, that one, I use that phrase because it was used in a conversation that it was as if I wasn't in the room, but in high school, one of my football coaches had described me in that manner. I was a senior going into college, and he had said, whatever school I go to is going to be lucky to have me because I'm a diamond in the rough. And even at that time, I really didn't understand what it fully meant. But looking back, of course, recognizing that at that time I had a set of raw abilities and talent. I had decent size and speed, but I was unpolished. And getting into a good school with a decent program where I could get good coaching would help me develop and become the best possible player. And it's funny because growing up, I actually quit Little League, Pop Warner football. I quit 2 years in a row. And the second year that I quit, the team I would have been on ended up going down to Florida to play for the national championship and was second in the nation that year. So my freshman, I was 12 years old at the time. And then in high school, I remember one Saturday morning, I told my father that I wanted to play football. He sat up in his bed and looked at me and said, "You want to play football?" And I said, "Yeah." And I don't remember the entire conversation, but he looked at me and said, "All right, you know, if I let you play now, I'm not going to let you quit." And for the next 10 years, that kind of stuck with me, that my father was not going to let me quit playing football. And I stuck with it. I mean, I loved it. It was rough at times, but I ended up developing into a really decent player, so much and so to the fact that after I graduated college, I went to a couple of NFL player developmental combines or tryouts. And there was a regional one in Los Angeles that I went to. And depending on how well you did there, you would get invited to the national combine. And I ended up qualifying for that as well. And that was in Detroit a couple of weeks later. But, you know, it would probably be like a month or so after that, I would let the football dream go because I had an epiphany while I was actually at a tryout in California, in San Jose. And all that was that, you know, I was spending my life playing a game. And I asked myself, I was like, what am I doing? Life is much more than just this game. So at that time, you know, I literally felt the love of the game leave me. And, you know, I went off to pursue other things. But just all that I accomplished in my football career, all the awards I ended up getting my senior year, being elected captain practically of every team that I played on, it wasn't something necessarily I expected. And I don't think anybody else around really expected it from me either. So that's why I really resonate with the concept of being a diamond in the rough or an underdog.
Yeah. Wow. What a powerful story. And you can enroll clients with this story for the rest of your life, by the way, because you understand coaching going back to your childhood. And the moment you can say to somebody, well, what I do, I've been doing this my whole life. And you tell this story, it was really powerful to hear that someone described you as a diamond in the rough way back when. and you felt it. You knew what it meant, and you were willing to try stuff out. It sounds like it was a moment you quit too, but then you came back to it. You were drawn back to it, and you had someone turned out to be your father, but also a great coach, because he said, "I'm not going to let you quit." And sometimes that's what great coaches do. They say, "I'm not going to let you quit," because we'll quit. We can't do it on our own often. And there are moments in life when, even though someone says, "I'm not going to let you quit," when you know on the inside, it's time to let this dream go. You had an epiphany. Life is more than just this game. And it sounds like you're going through that again in this moment. Your game right now looks like being a police officer and taking care of the family that way. But there's another one you want to have and you want to create. So you know how to play this game. It's no different. In sports, I don't know what language you'd use for this. Let me use business language and see how it maps out. I know the importance of looking at lead indicators and not lag indicators. So for anyone who's listening, not familiar, a lag indicator is if you're creating clients, how many clients you have and how much money goes into your bank account. That's out of your control. What's in your control are what I would call the lead indicators. So how much time you spend connecting with interesting people, how much time you spend serving people, actually coaching them, listening to them deeply, how many proposals you make. What's also a lead indicator is how many no's you collect. The more no's you get, the more yeses are coming. And how much money you put out in proposals, the amount of money that comes in is out of your control, but it will just follow down the road. How does that map over when you're an athlete?
As an athlete, you can control the effort that you put into training sessions, into practice. You have control over what you eat, when you eat. You have control over your sleeping habits, when you get up. The things you don't control is your opponent, how they're going to respond and react to you. Although you can study them and kind of pick up on, some tells and other things, but it's an ever evolving process, especially in the heat of the moment.
That's great.
Can't control the weather, or if it's an outdoor sport, you can't necessarily control how you might even feel on game day, So.
Yeah, it maps out perfectly. In fact, I did a training session online with my trainer this morning, and I'm trying to build up to pull-ups. Used to do them years ago. I haven't done them for years. 12 weeks ago, I could barely do one. I got up to 5. Last time I did 5 pull-ups, and I do them super slow. So they're really, really slow pull-ups. Makes it hard. I want to justify myself right now. This morning, I could do 2.5. I don't know why. I was really kicking myself. I was really disappointed in myself until I caught myself and I realized I did the pull-ups. That's what counts. It doesn't matter that on this day I did slightly less than that day because I'll do more the next time, but I did them. It's a lead indicator. I did the pull-ups. The body I want, the fitness I want is coming because I did the work. And that's what we're talking about. And it's the same game in creating clients. I know you must have read The Prosperous Coach because you came to my event.
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah. So, there's a framework in that book. I was going to say formula. It's not a formula. A formula means you have to do it this way, otherwise it won't work. I don't believe in that. But there's a framework. Connect, invite, create, propose. You want to get clients, you connect with people just to connect. Hey, how's life? What's going on? You build interesting connections, relationships. You invite some of them to experience the work that you do. It's the heart of the Prosperous Coach approach is sell the experience, not the concept of coaching. Because how do you explain coaching? You and I will talk and your life will change. I mean, and you'll send me a lot of money. Connect, invite, create, where you serve people. And at some point you've got to propose, hey, this is how much it will cost. And at some point, some people will send you some money. Do you have paying clients right now?
No.
Tell me more about your coaching practice. What have you done? Have you done any training as a coach? Have you had any clients that are pro bono? Tell me more.
My training has mostly consisted of self-initiated teaching. So like taking a lot of your content through the book, your podcast, going to the intensive, and then just getting around other coaches. I enrolled in 2 coaching classes through Mind Valley, one of them being yours, and another one is that I believe one of the co-founders, one that he created as well. I've been trying to read as much as I can get my hands on from guys like Steve Chandler. I've been going through a lot of his stuff. I've been taking a lot of Michael Neal's content as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, just taking in the information and formulating it in such a way that I can then go out and use it. So I've been playing the 100 Powerful Coaching Conversations game, enrolling people for that. And up to now, I'm about a quarter or so of the way through.
So let me explain for anyone who's listening what that context is. When someone's new to coaching, the challenge I give them is you've got to get 100 powerful coaching conversations on your calendar in the next 30 days. That doesn't mean you have to coach 100 people in the next 30 days, but you reach out to people, friends, family, colleagues, peers, and you let them know what you're up to. And you let them know right now you're not charging, or it doesn't matter if you're charging or not, but would you like to be coached? And you fill up your calendar, because by doing so, you've pushed against some of your edges anyway about having uncomfortable conversations. You've started to talk about what you do, and you start to fill your calendar where you're actually coaching people. You see, the challenge with everything you're doing when you're immersing yourself in reading and learning is that's great. I've never stopped. I'm always learning more. But just like being an athlete, you can read all the books about baseball or football you like. You've got to get on the field and start training, throwing that ball, getting hit to know how it actually works.
Yeah. And that's the most fun.
Yeah.
You know, sitting in a film room gets hot, it's tiring, and it is enjoyable and boring at the same time. Yeah. But getting out, actually engaging in the act of, and there's even a distinction between practice and playing the game. Yeah, going to practice is better than sitting in a meeting, but playing the game is better than being in practice. So, for me now in coaching, it's like right from the film room, right to the game field when I'm in a coaching conversation with somebody. And I actually had a conversation with an ex-NFL player who happens to be a family member of mine. He and I had a conversation yesterday, and after I got off the call with him, I was so charged up from it that it was kind of another indication for me that, this is where I need to be and this is what I need to do more of. So I was excited to, schedule my next conversation and do it again.
This conversation with this particular person, was this you were coaching them or
Yes.
are you having it? Okay.
Yeah, it was a coaching conversation.
And it was set up very clearly as a coaching conversation.
Mm-hmm. With agreements and everything up front.
Nice. That's great. That's great. Look, you have let me call it a luxury. You have a job right now that's paying the bills. That's a good thing, because the moment you don't and you're a new coach, you're in this neediness of wanting to get everyone to become your client. And it turns people away. I love it when someone is able to coach part-time, when they can say, look, I only have 2 spots a week available, Wednesday evening at 9:00 and Saturday morning at 10:00, and that's it. Because it makes you very unique. In a world where anyone and everyone and their mother can become a coach, and they are, you can get certified as a coach online for free. The barrier to entry is really, really low, and everyone's becoming a coach these days. So they have lots of space. I can coach you anytime, anywhere. And when you can say, look, I only have 1 spot a week, I only have 2 spots a week, it makes you very intriguing. Coaching, Daniel, is an apprentice-based profession. You've got to learn somehow from and with another coach. And if you want to be a great coach, you've got to learn with great coaches. You've got to find ways. I really recommend you look for ways to get your own coach or coaches, whether that's in small groups or one-on-one, so that you experience this on the other side. If you haven't been coached, you can't be a coach. Do you have ways right now that people are coaching you, whether it's one-on-one or in groups?
Not, no, not necessarily. The During the intensive, I would say it was probably like my first experience with that. And yeah, no, you're definitely right. And I recognize it, and it's something that I know needs to be done. And getting to that place where it can be done, I don't like the way that feels coming out. I guess getting to that place where I'm able to do that without.
Do you mean able to afford it? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, the story at the start of The Prosperous Coach, I know this one well, right? The start of The Prosperous Coach, it's 2007 or six, something like that. And I read in his blog from this guy called Steve Chandler, and he writes this article about making bold requests. And I see he's got this training school. He'll teach coaches how to build their business. And I think, oh, he likes bold requests. I'll make one to him. And I ask him, hey, Steve, send him this email. Would you let me do your coach training school for free? And I'll pay you double at the end. And I'm so proud of myself. I made this bold request. And I think he's got to say yes to that. And he says no. And I was really upset. And he says, no, I want the rich who can make the money first. And it was hard. It took me 9 months. And 9 months later, I came back to him and said, I've created the money. And that was the start of our connection and our relationship. And we've been friends for over a decade now. Steve just called me the other day. Actually, he's about to retire. He's 75 and about to retire from this world of coaching. He'll still be writing. And I know that feeling. And I also know the feeling when I'd invested, and when I'd invested more than I felt comfortable to spend on coaching. The first time when I said to somebody, this is how much it costs to work with me, and they freaked out. Over here, I was okay because, oh yeah, I get it. Me too. I've been there. I know what that feels like.
Yeah. I feel like I relate to you more than just being in the situation. I feel like you and I had a similar experience before I got into the intensive, being that, I put in my 4PC application and you sent me back a response and you said, no, but here are a list of things you can do. And on there was the intensive. And even at the time, the investment that you were asking for to be a part of it, although looking at it, I knew within myself that, all right, this isn't something that we just have laying around. It's like you say, nobody has a coaching budget. Some people do. And I will be one of those individuals in the coming days. But that day, it wasn't it. So, but I still knew that I had to be a part of it. I had to be a part of this moment that literally kind of materialized almost out of nothing for me. And it's yielded dividends beyond what I can imagine up to now. And I feel like I'm still just scratching the surface of the insights and the applications that I've gained from it.
Daniel, let me tell you about that email. You asked to be in 4PC and I sent you a letter back and it gave you a number of things to do. I told you to do things like read every article I've ever written on my website. And as you read each one, make a note of one insight you've got and then apply it. Watch every video I've ever made, but make a note of one insight you've got and then apply it. I gave you tons of things to do. Now, the first time I sent that email years and years ago, I said to somebody, it doesn't feel like you're a fit to be working with me. Here's what I recommend that you do. You don't need me as your coach right now, or I'm not the best fit. And I got this scathing email back. She said these terrible things about me, and I was really hurt for 2 days until I realized, oh, she just validated my decision. Because how you show up in challenging moments says about who you are in the world. And that, when she got challenged, she went to let me attack you. I was upset with Steve Chandler when he said he wouldn't take me on as his coach, as his client for free, and I'd pay him double at the end. But I didn't get angry with him. I didn't say anything bad to him. I went away and did what it took. And that email that I send sometimes to people is a filter because I watch what happens. And some people get it and I never hear from them again. And some people get it and say, yes, I'll do this. And then I never hear from them again. And some people come back a year or two later and they say, I did it. I watched every video. I applied every insight I learned, read every article. I applied every insight. This is what's happened. And here I am, and I'm back. And I've had a number of people over the years who I've pushed away again and again and again. And when I'm pushing them away, I'm coaching them. I'm seeing what happens in that moment of challenge or adversity, because that's life. It happens to all of us in all sorts of ways. So I like that you said, I felt it, it didn't feel good, but you showed up anyway. And it's why we're talking together now, because I liked how you showed up at the intensive. There was something about you and your spirit. We brought on, it turned out there was another police officer who'd been serving for 30 years in London, in the UK. And he'd written to me the day before, and I started coaching you, and I suddenly remembered he'd sent this email, and I brought him on. You literally coached him and said something to him that only one police officer could say to another police officer. But it was from a coaching place that landed with him really powerfully. He's never forgotten those words. You are a coach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It sort of speaks to the part of me who is that diamond in rough, or that underdog. And something I think that makes someone an underdog is they're relatively often faced with challenges and adversities, but they're not the type to duck out or quit or give up. But instead of saying, why me? They ask, why not me? And they find a way. If they can't go through it, they go over. If they can't go over, they go around. If they can't go around, they go under. But they're the type of people who persist time after time after time. And that attitude is sort of what drove me as an athlete, just having a motor nonstop on the field, because what I lacked in talent, I had to make up for in hustle. So it's like, okay, I may not have been the most gifted, but you're not going to outwork me. And seeing how that translates to all of life, and even now more so to coaching and working with high level leaders and individuals who are creating impact. I thank you, because now it kind of gives me something else to look for when I am kind of working through who it is I want to work with.
Well, the shortcut to that is it's you. Our dream client is the person who looks back at us in the mirror every night. When you said, I knew how to hustle, you are never going to outwork me. You ever seen that video of Will Smith talking about building the wall as a kid, getting on a treadmill? I will die before you beat me. There are some people who show up that way. Those are your people, because they understand you and you understand them. And at some point, either edit out this interview, this podcast, to capture you speaking, because this is you, real, that you can put on your website or share with somebody and say, hey, watch this, or leave it on like this with the two of us talking together if you want to be really real, or transcribe this and put the text on your website. But this is who you are. It just flows out of you, and you've got to share this with the world. And your people will get that, and they'll understand you because you'll understand them.
Definitely. You mentioned a website. I have to ask, what website?
Yeah, well, the website, at some point you'll create. Look, here's the thing for most coaches. They don't really need a website. But there's a place for what I call a one-page website. Because you're going to meet someone, it doesn't matter whether it's at a social event or they've heard about you, and they're going to do what we all do when we meet somebody these days, going to put your name into Google. And so at some point, there's a website that says danielallen.com or Daniel Allen Coaching, whatever it is. And when they go there, it doesn't have to say very much. It really could literally say, it could tell your story about being a diamond in the rough. It might say, how I've showed up my entire life is that you're never going to outwork me. It could have a few words only. And they'll read that and go, oh, wow, this is me. Don't worry about trying to create a complex website with pages and pages. A simple one-page story website is powerful. Or in quotes at the top, it says, I'm not going to let you quit. And underneath that, it says, my dad said these words to me, and it changed my life. And if you and I work together, what I promise you is I'm not going to let you quit.
Yeah.
That's it. If that was the only thing on your website for 2 years, 3 years, that's all you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so counterintuitive to our culture, right? Because we live in a world where the more you have, apparently the better it must be. But no, there's a simpler, more impactful approach. And I went to another coach's website before, and he had this quote that said, he said, "Come to the edge." And they said, "We're afraid." He said, "Come to the edge." And they came to the edge. He pushed them and they flew. When I read that on this person's website, I didn't need to read anything else. I just kind of took that, and, it still lights me up to think about it. And I feel it. And I just say, yes, that's what I need.
Now, that's lovely. I know that poem. It's a lovely poem. The difference with you, and it struck you, so that's what counts. But the difference with you and the words I just used, "I'm not going to let you quit," they're your words. You heard them at 12 years old and again at 17 years old, and it struck you. This is why your website becomes your tool. It's easy to get quotes and stories and things from other people. When it's yours, everything changes. Mm. I'm not going to let you quit.
Sure, man. Yeah.
So Daniel, here's what I want you to know. I'm not going to let you quit, but I'm not going to do it the way that your dad did, because I'm me and he's him. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to tell you this. I believe in you. I believe in you. So there'll be moments when it's challenging as you build your coaching practice. There'll be moments when you've got no after no after no. There'll be moments when you made one proposal after another, and no one's ever said yes. Or someone says yes and they change their mind. I can hear the kids in the background. There's going to be moments when you're wondering about, how do I take care of the family? What I want you to know is this. I believe in you. And that's how I can be a stand for what you call, I'm not going to let you quit.
Yeah. I appreciate that a lot.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Coach.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching, it was called leadership. And it's what I love to do, to coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.